welcome to On the Front Lines of Collapse. I'm your host, Christopher David, joined once again by my co-host, Christopher Michael.
Hey, everyone.
Recently, Christopher Michael wrote a really great article discussing the ongoing events around drag reading hour and drag shows. Specifically, the state of Tennessee has decided to make it illegal to have these events with children present. Christopher Michael, let's get into your article and discuss the talking points.
Yeah, thank you. So the article is called Conservatives Come Out Against Freedom of Speech. And the reason I said that was because I see a lot of hypocrisy with the arguments going on from the ideological right, where they're saying we can't have children at these shows because of sexually explicit content, this and that. The problem is that specifically drag has been going on for at least hundreds of years in one form or another.
Most likely thousands.
The oldest that I found evidence of drag going back in history was to Rome with the Roman playwright Pleiades, who lived circa 254 to 184 BC. The more well-known from our culture is probably William Shakespeare. There were a lot of male actors that would play female characters. One of my favorite performances was from Mark Rylance, who's a very famous actor, who played the lead character as a female in Twelfth Night. It's an amazing performance, and it just goes to show that performance of Twelfth Night with a Hollywood leading actor would not be allowed to be performed in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That would be illegal for children to go and see that. I see that as absolutely contrary to the beliefs of the conservatives in smaller government and less interference in people's personal lives.
So why all of a sudden the uproar about children's safety when, as you discussed in the article, we've got an epidemic of childhood poverty occurring in Tennessee? Additionally, what were some other things that you found?
One of the main things for me, so for your first question, I wanted to see what are some of the issues, because they're making this about the children. They're saying this is to protect the children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's a couple issues in Tennessee that have been taking a back seat while this is the main priority. So the first is that Tennessee, as of 2022, has a childhood poverty rate of 18.1%. What this means is 277,000 Tennessee children are unable to obtain the basic necessities for their life, which includes clothing, shoes, food, housing, medical care, etc.
Mm-hmm.
They touted this as one of the lowest numbers in the last 10 years, so there's a trending down. That to me is beside the point. If they can spend this much time on legislation to keep children away from going to an artistic display,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't they focusing more actually on the children? That's where the hypocrisy really comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is that 1 in 4, 25% of Tennessee households with children had little or no confidence in their ability to make their next housing payment. That to me is so much more important than making it illegal for children to go to a drag queen story hour.
Absolutely.
We're seeing a lot of muddling.
It's a lot of non-issues.
Mm-hmm.
And as you wrote, it's a nothing burger that we have everybody whipped up, angry on either side, saying that, oh, we need to protect the children. Well, in reality, we're actually not giving a good goddamn about the children.
Mm-mm.
We're running after these phantom problems.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, children are not able to find the proper nourishment. They're certainly not getting the proper education. And their homes are in jeopardy of being lost because their parents or guardians are not able to pay the mortgage. Meanwhile, the governor thinks that it's the top priority to shut down these theatrical events.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the governor, Bill Lee of Tennessee, who signed this legislation on the 2nd of March, has done drag himself.
Mm.
And I have a picture in the article of him. Now, I know looking at the picture that this was probably a powder puff game where the football players dress as cheerleaders and then the cheerleaders dress as football players and they play. I think it's a wonderful tradition. And that's the thing, is these are traditions going back hundreds of years in the United States, but also, as we just said, for theater and also movies, it goes back and back. I don't see anything wrong with it. Apparently, Bill Lee didn't see anything wrong with it when he was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, everyone decides that just because it's a man, I guess, in a dress and looking like a woman, that is somehow detrimental to children.
Yes.
I don't see it. And the arguments that I get from people online, all they can say is it's evil,
Mm-hmm.
that they are grooming the children,
Mm-hmm.
that they are all pedophiles,
Mm-hmm.
and they just want to rape and hurt the children.
Perfect buzzwords for an emotionally challenged, mentally compromised, in quote, adult.
Right.
They are going to spew the same sound bites as the neo-Nazi groups that are standing outside of these libraries and schools that are conducting the drag reading hour.
I have that in the article that there was a neo-Nazi group that were out there and they were yelling, their normal chants of Sieg Heil and all of that bullshit, calling people faggots and pedophiles as they were going into a library to read to children. That's where I'm really missing it, that somehow drag queens that are interested in promoting literacy among children are now being equated to pedophiles, rapers, murderers. It doesn't make any sense.
That's one of the things that really pisses me off about the pedophile thing. Statistically, there are more straight men that are committing pedophilia than gay men. And guess what? All of it's fucking wrong.
Yeah.
And everyone that's doing it, they should be put down or thrown in prison for life because this is ridiculous. And then when you have a neo-Nazi group that is, in quotes, on your side, really conservatives.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side of it then. A lot of these people are coming from the perspective of, I live my life by the Bible. Okay, well, when the Nazis are on your side, you're not on the right side. It boggles my mind. I don't understand how any of these people, they're not really coming up with any specific concrete examples.
No, they're just emotional sound bites that they hear on social media or mainstream news that fits their narrative. They're not objectively looking at the situation and deciding, okay, well, you know what? I don't agree that my child should be in this type of environment being read a story by a drag queen. So I'm not going to put my child in that situation. Perfectly normal, reasonable reaction.
And that is freedom of choice.
Yes. But now you have a group of really kind of extremist mentality that, I mean, the Nazi group is on your side, that's saying that these people are pedophiles, that they're reading these stories, they're going to rape children, they're going to permanently damage them. Well, is that realistic? No, statistically, that's not taking place. However, as you pointed out in your article, the Catholic Church is statistically more active in abusing children.
Absolutely. Statistically speaking, I put this in the article, and it's one of the main tags that I've been putting when I post on social media about this. Statistically speaking, a child is more likely to be raped in a church by a priest than at a drag show by a drag queen. And that's something they can't stomach. They can't get around it. When I bring that up, either they don't say anything or they completely ignore it.
The thing that really gets to me is that it's okay for the Christian church to rape children. Perfectly fine. Where's the neo-Nazi group standing out in front of church if they're so for the kids, for shutting the church down, for locking up the pastor or priest that's assaulting people, that's raping children, that's molesting them? Where's the outrage for that? You don't see it. You still have Catholics, men and women, taking their children to church, and you don't hear a peep. So why is it acceptable for the Christian church to molest children, but somehow people dressed up as women or the opposite sex are somehow the biggest threat to our civilization right now?
All of a sudden.
Yes.
Because we've already pointed out this has been happening for hundreds of years. In my article, I talk about all of the different Western movies and plays and stuff that have men that dress as women. And I picked very specific ones because they are people who are quite famous. So I said any of these shows basically now would be illegal to perform, I guess, in public. So any Tyler Perry movie or play,
In the state of Tennessee.
yep, for Medea, Monty Python, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis in Some Like It Hot, 1959, Tim Curry in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, 1975, Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari in Bosom Buddies, 1980 to 82. That was a television show. John Travolta in Hairspray. That was 2007. Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire, 1993. This is part of our Western culture. It's funny.
That's the thing. I'm glad you said that, because narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths are unable to understand humor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice that it's always an attack? We have the woke left always attacking and not comprehending jokes and humor, comedy, and now we have the woke right shutting down expression of comedy and theater.
It's fun. Drag shows, again, I'm not saying that I would bring a child to a drag show. I would absolutely go, and I have gone, because they're fun. It's to kind of almost make fun of culture sometimes.
Yes.
You know, when you have a drag queen up there and their name is Karen from Finance, that's funny, you know, and it's for entertainment. And what is so bad about drag queens trying to increase literacy in children that, by and large, really fucking need it? Because in Tennessee, this is part of the article, because this is another thing that has been taking a backseat while all of this has been going on. 29% of Tennessee children are at grade level in English language arts. Only 29%. And then only 25% are on grade level in math. So we are attacking some of the only people in the community in Tennessee that actually want to help children read more, and now they're not allowed to do it.
The governor's not interested in helping those children read more.
No.
Obviously. And then the neo-Nazi group is not interested in sitting down with children and trying to teach them, which it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, because it's like, thank God they're not. But they're out there screaming and yelling and intimidating the poor children while they're inside the library trying to have a fun experience.
Oh, yeah. You know, children go into the library and then they have to hear the neo-Nazis yelling faggot and pedophile as they're going in.
That's right.
I mean, make it make sense, because it is so ludicrous. It's so out there.
But the conservatives, in quotes, the Republicans, are seriously trying to say that what they're standing for is the right thing, when the Nazi group, I know we keep going back to this, but we need to really hammer this in, that the Nazi group is thinking the same way that you are. Right. Excuse me, but the Nazis were really effective at murdering children not too long ago. Now all of a sudden they're your allies? Yeah, where's the outrage with that?
There was a guy that I was arguing with on Twitter, who, when I brought up, and I posted the article, the news article of the neo-Nazi group that was in Wadsworth, Ohio, outside of a library, and I said what we've said here: if the neo-Nazis are on your side, then you're on the wrong side. And that's what I said to him. And he said, I really wish we could just have a conversation without calling each other names. I wasn't even calling him a Nazi. I was just saying, the Nazis are on your side. How that is such a big point to me. Because if I was sitting there and I had the idea that maybe drag queens shouldn't be reading to children, and then a Nazi was like, you know what? Yeah, we're on the same side, I would rethink what I was thinking about.
Exactly.
That's just me, and maybe that's just someone who understands reason, ethics, and morals, but it looks like a lot of them don't.
Well, once again, we saw it with the church pedophilia scandal, which is still ongoing. It's not like it stopped.
Yeah, so that broke. The big story of that broke in 2002. The Boston Globe, their Spotlight team, did an article about the priest abuse in the Archdiocese of Boston, and there were hundreds of priests that were moved around to different churches after they were accused and found to have been raping children. I'm not even going to say, a lot of people they don't like those terms anymore, but it needs to be as pointed as possible. I don't have to say just abused.
Yeah.
They are raping children violently, and with no concern for anything of the child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I bring that up in these conversations, the reason I do that is because where was the outrage then?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people were upset about it. Okay. Maybe talked about it. Why were there no laws keeping priests away from children?
Yes.
Because when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of examples, you would start to think, maybe we shouldn't allow the priests near the children in these churches.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see any laws against that. You don't see people picketing outside of churches and trying to expel the Catholic priests from their community.
You didn't see the Nazis out there protesting.
No, you didn't, because it was supposed to be for the children.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm missing that connection.
Yep.
So I brought it up to this person on Twitter, and he said, teaching a child about God and teaching a child to pretend that you don't have a dick are in no way comparable. So I said, so priests raping children is okay as long as they also talk about God?
Mm-hmm.
And I responded with, can you show me all the rapes that happen at drag shows? The next thing that he posts is a news article about a drag queen that was found with child pornography on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's absolutely illegal, and they should be held accountable for that. Everyone that does that should be held accountable for
1,000%.
it. Though that is not on the same level as child rape. I'm specifically talking about when they're raping and abusing the children. He could only find one that had child pornography on their phone. I said, not the same thing.
And then how many police have child pornography on their phone?
Exactly.
Teachers, anyone that you want to talk, they're all over. Yes.
Everyone.
Oh, especially the politicians.
Yeah. Hollywood people. They're all doing it.
But then the systemic rape
Exactly.
of children by the Christian church is okay because they're talking about God.
Mm-hmm.
It's a psychotic break that Americans are experiencing here.
Mm-hmm.
That person can seriously say that it's okay for it to happen because of that. And then I think about the TikTok you showed me. There was a young woman in front of a congregation that exposed her pastor for having sex with her in his office on the floor when she was a teenager.
13 or 14, yeah.
And the fucking congregation sided with the pastor and was trying to pray for him.
They're praying over him.
That guy needs to be drug out and shot immediately.
Mm-hmm. And that's the hypocrisy that we're running into, that it seems to be okay when the priests do it. When you have so many examples of priests raping children with no legislation keeping priests away from children in public.
Mm-hmm.
But you have drag queens where you do not see, they're not raping the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're dancing. Maybe they're dancing a little bit scantily clad. Okay, that's no different than the people at Hooters,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this. You see the same parts.
How about a Super Bowl halftime show?
Right, absolutely.
Commercials?
I haven't seen a drag show more lewd than a Super Bowl halftime show in the last 10, 15 years.
And guess what? Don't take your damn kid to one if you don't like it.
That's the point.
It's amazing that people aren't comprehending that.
And that's the point where they're missing. One of the things I said in the article was that these people wouldn't be near a drag show anyway.
Exactly.
They are intolerant. They don't understand humor, as we've said. And they don't like having fun. They just like pissing and complaining about everything.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't even be going to drag shows in the first place. They just want control over everyone else. They want everyone to think the way that they do, to dress the way that they do, to go to the same church and have the same beliefs as them. And when you don't have that, you're not with them. You are their enemy.
Well, and guess what? As we talked about before in previous episodes, that's an indication of a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be top dog, controlling everyone and telling everyone how to think, act, wear, say, believe in. It's always about control. And then what's so frustrating with the hypocrisy with this subject is that just 2 years ago with the vaccines, we saw the Republicans having a hissy fit about the basically forced vaccination of employees in various fields. Now all of a sudden, they're totally fine with having drag performers lose their jobs and their form of income all because they don't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it always one thing is evil, but this other thing is not? It's so ridiculous.
This is a textbook case study for collective narcissism in our communities where we see groups. So it's that group identity and that group think that comes together, says, we're right. Anyone that says anything different, they're not part of our group. We don't talk to them. We don't associate with them, anything. Both sides are completely guilty of this at times.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the forced language of the pronouns.
That's right.
Of the people on the left. I said I see no difference between that and what the conservative and the right are trying to do by forcing people not to be able to perform their art.
Express themselves.
Exactly. And that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people and parents see it. So the thing at the end of the day, don't take your kids if you don't want them to go, and don't go yourself if you're not interested. No, they want to control every aspect of it.
And it doesn't matter which side it is. A narcissist is a narcissist. It doesn't matter if they're standing behind Trump, Biden, or some other bozo. They're evil people, and they don't care about you. It's always what they can do to gain the upper hand against someone else. It's a dog-eat-dog world for them, and they will do whatever it takes to come out on top. I'd like to talk about the biggest hypocrite in this story. Can you go into that?
Yes, so the lieutenant governor of Tennessee, so again, Governor Bill Lee signed the bill restricting drag shows in public where minors are present. The lieutenant governor, Randy McNally, this week was caught using his government Instagram account to comment on the accounts of attractive young men, drag queens, and trans women. He posted these comments all while supporting the legislation to ban drag performances in Tennessee.
And there you go.
There you go.
Yep.
This is all a theater and show.
Yep.
These people coming out there having the most vitriol and saying, you need to do this, and if you don't, you're evil, you're going to go burn in hell, blah, blah,
Pedophiles,
blah. All of these things. They're the same ones that are enjoying this content themselves. It's disgusting. It's deplorable. There's no reason for it. And his defense is saying, oh, well, I've always had, he said, I grew up in a time when being gay wasn't okay, but I have gay friends. And so he tries to make it off like, oh, this is just completely normal. No, not for people that stand on the corner holding signs saying you can't do this, but then to go do it privately themselves.
Absolutely. It's just that hypocrisy that these narcissists are so guilty of.
It is the epitome of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And that's why I got so pissed, and that's why I had to write this article to start to show people, listen, you might think you know the story about what's going on, because a lot of people, I think they read one story and they're like, oh, drag queens are raping children. We got to stop them from doing that.
Yep.
Without doing any research or analysis objectively by themselves.
Yeah, standing back and looking at the big picture here, who's getting fucked over by who? And it certainly seems like the citizens of Tennessee are being played beautifully by the state government.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you might ask the question, why are we talking about this on the front lines of collapse? That's because this is just another way of us not getting along. When we're not getting along, our society, both sides, left and right, conservative, liberal, anything, we are not working together against the actual problems that are happening.
That's absolutely true. And I think I said this to you yesterday. You have all these fuckheads that are outside protesting. Any one of those groups, do they want to contribute to the community in any positive way? Are they growing any food themselves? What are they doing to reduce their consumption? They're clearly not working because they're out there during the week protesting. So it's like, once again, we have a group of people that are really empowered to bitch and complain, but not actually contribute anything to the community.
Yeah, where are all the parents protesting outside the schools because their children are only learning so much that they're at 29% grade reading level?
Absolutely.
How does that make any sense? Why aren't they demanding to understand why this is happening in the educational system for the kids.
Yes. Why are their children stupid?
Yeah.
Because the parents are, guess what, just as stupid or worse.
Yeah.
Because you pointed out in the Dr. Phil conversation with Joe Rogan, you have half the population mentally dumbed down to the 6th grade level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so easy to whip everybody up get really worked up about a topic such as this. And then to have people literally say that drag performers should die.
Mm-hmm.
They should be made illegal to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when, it's, show us the facts. Where's the data to say that this is actually impacting the children negatively?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the children actually don't have any access to the necessities of life.
Mm-hmm.
What was the number of children?
277,000.
Yeah, it's insane.
In Tennessee.
But that's not an issue.
Nope.
Drag is.
Yeah, it's a complete non-issue. And they just like throughout all history, we're using the children as the pawns.
Yes.
And we need a boogeyman of the reason that all of our problems are happening. It's because of the drag queens.
Mm-hmm.
That is so stupid. And it's so immature and disgusting. And you know what? We don't usually talk about these types of things, but it really is just going to the further degradation of our society.
Mm-hmm.
We had the most people unsubscribe from our page from this article that I've seen recently
Mm-hmm.
over the past year. I'm not saying that it's specifically from that article, but it's just a trend that it's a little bit higher this time when I sent out our newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
To those people who left, they're not going to hear this, but good. I'm fucking glad you're gone
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to read our stuff. I don't want you reading our stuff because you clearly are unable to entertain any thoughts that are maybe just a little bit uncomfortable for you to understand.
You're stupid.
Yeah. So I'm glad. If you don't like the content that we're producing, good, then it's not fucking for you.
Yeah,
It's
well,
for
go
other
out
people.
there and support your Nazi groups.
Sure.
And bash people for trying to educate children. Also, I'm glad that you brought this up. I did want to talk about how this topic, although it is, as we've said, really a nothing burger, I think it's an indication of the further degradation of society, like you just said, that it's a witch hunt. That we're getting to the point where I don't think we're that far away that you actually can drag someone out because they're, in quotes, the witch. They did something that you're not comfortable with and you can't handle the world disintegrating around you because guess what? You sat on your ass, you bitched on social media, you couldn't handle the tough factual data that suggested that our society is crumbling. And so now it's someone else's fault for all of your problems. Well, no, Susan, it's your fucking fault for not taking responsibility for your own life and doing something productive to help mitigate the destructive effects of our civilizational collapse. But no, this week it's drag performers and they need to burn at the stake. Meanwhile, all the Christians are going to rally around, whatever fantasy that they're believing in. And nothing to see here, folks. Keep on raping the kids because you talk about Jesus.
Yeah, I think calling it a witch hunt is probably the best metaphor that we can really use because it really is. It's happened throughout society when there's just this discontentment and people are looking for an outlet of their aggression is what it is. They can't find anything else because they're certainly not going to look at themselves. We've talked about the widespread pandemic of the cognitive dissonance all over the world. Mm-hmm. They're definitely not the causes of their own problems. So they need to look for what exactly is causing it.
Yes.
And they just land on, I would say, just one of the easiest groups to go after because they're flamboyant, they're colorful.
They're different than you.
They're absolutely different. They can't understand that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't come into their mind of thinking, wow, I can go out and have a fun time and just have fun, be myself without any kind of judgment. They do not understand how to live that way, which is right in line with being a sociopath.
Yes, and I think you said this in your article. It's like, why are these in quotes, libertarian-esque people so obsessed with telling people what to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like you said, because they're sociopaths. They want to force people to do what they want to do because they're the enlightened ones, even though they probably can't read or write coherently beyond a sixth grade level, if that.
Yeah, and this is also not the first time where this specifically, I'm going to say the Christian right came out and forced to ban something. In about, I think it was 2002 or 2003, they tried to get Harry Potter books banned from school libraries
Mm-hmm.
because of the evil of witchcraft on the pages and the fact that they were recruiting children to become witches.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Did they read the book?
No, of course they didn't read the book
Mm-hmm.
because they're not able to comprehend.
Yeah, they're probably unable to read anyway.
Right. They can get about 170 characters and then that's it. Twitter. So, of course, that was an illogical, stupid thing. That is, they just wanted to control everything. They wanted not just themselves to be able to control their own children. They wanted to be able to control other people's children as well. There was a big court case that had to do with a school that was banning the books. The reason that the books were allowed to stay there and they won is because they were saying their religious identity and beliefs are absolutely protected by the Constitution of the United States and the First Amendment. But what people really don't understand is, yes, you have a freedom of religion, but you also have a freedom from religion.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to abide by the rules of some church or religion in the United States because that is not what we believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But you are free to practice what you want. The crux of it really is when they take that and try to lord those beliefs over other people.
Yes, and they quickly do that. I mean, they're going to bitch and moan about their rights being infringed upon, but any second they will be more than happy to infringe on someone else's rights. It doesn't matter what title they try to hide behind. You know, the narcissist is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing here. I think what is really concerning on a personal level is the witch hunt, the witch huntery, if you will, of these different groups. And it's not going to be drag for long. It'll be another, new monster that we all have to go out and attack with our pitchforks. It's just how quickly people instantly get enraged now and will go to great lengths to hurt, suppress, and demonize anyone else that thinks contrary to them.
Yeah, and then also kind of to piggyback off of what you were saying, where does it go from here?
Right.
How violent are they going to become? For a long time, they were preaching against the gay agenda, and you can kind of see a point of all the different things with the pronouns and all the children are trans now and all these different things that they think that the Christians believe that they're being inundated with all of these things. So where do they stop? Do they take away children from gay couples now? Do they take away marriage from gay couples or try to ban them from public? Where does it end? It's a slippery slope when you start banning people from reading to children.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the different flavors of the month because it's like during COVID, you were a demon if you didn't get vaccinated.
Mm-hmm. Or wear a mask.
Yes. And, as we saw, we were recently working out at the gym and we saw this old woman in the swimming pool wearing a mask.
In March 2023.
Explain that one to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fucked up. So that was occurring and people were literally calling for others to get killed and to not get medical treatment that they deserve because they didn't agree with them. So, we're seeing this again. It's just a cycle. And it seems that now it's just something stupid like drag queens reading to people. It's just it's just getting more and more absurd with it. And once again, if you don't agree with it, then don't go and do it. But that doesn't mean you have the constitutional authority to ban other people. Now, when children or adults are being abused and harmed physically in any way, absolutely step in. But they're not doing that in the real world because they're not taking care of those 277,000 children in Tennessee that need immediate care for the basic necessities of life. They're not doing that.
That's why I don't believe them when they say this is about the children.
And then you had the lieutenant governor that's actively out there trying to get his dick sucked by a drag queen or some attractive man that he wants to hook up with.
Yeah, while supporting taking away people's ability to pay their bills.
Right, yeah. Well, I think it's really good that we've talked about a lot of the things that we've mentioned about where this is heading and what the implications are. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, like the future going forward with it, or?
Yeah, I think this is another example of mass psychosis.
That's a great way to say it, yes.
I think you need to see when something starts happening and there's a large emotional response from different sides. I think you need to take a step back, maybe even a couple of steps back, wait a little bit, and try to weigh all of the facts objectively and see, is there any demonstrable evidence to say that drag queens are raping children? Not that I've seen. Has there been a drag queen that has raped a child? Sure, probably. I don't know. If there's examples of it, I'd love to see it, because we're not seeing any evidence that the children are in any kind of danger. We do see it with the Christian churches, though.
That's right.
We do have evidence of that. And that's why I bring it up, because of the hypocrisy that if this is really about the children, it should be focused on the children. Going forward, again, you need to try to protect yourself from the mass psychosis. If you start to get really worked up and into some things, take a step back and figure out, is this actually something that is happening? Or is this some crazy manifestation that people are under a spell of some sort, that they have to have this selective outrage of these different things? And I think you need to increase your emotional intelligence, work on that, and your personal resilience.
Yeah, take time out for yourself, because I think all these people that are getting whipped up for or against it are not realizing the bigger picture here. Most likely, this is another psyop that the government is very actively stirring. And we don't have all the facts with it. We seem to be going from one sky is falling event to another since May of 2020, basically. And the whole point of the psychosis is to get more and more people worked up about greater and bigger threats occurring. And they're not really threats, but they're sure as hell going to try to convince you that they are. Meanwhile, no one's growing their own food. No one's figuring out ways to produce their own energy, or that maybe next winter we won't be able to afford the electric bill or the heating oil. So we should figure out ways to acquire a wood stove and install that, learn any important skills that we may need in the future. None of them are focused on that at all, but it's just all these non-issues that they're whipped up about and they spend so much time on. We have neighbors that are absolutely adamant that Russia is evil and that we need to support the neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine right now, and whatever the US is doing is the absolute best for our freedoms. They don't have any garden. They talk about getting chickens. They're not doing that now. So it's just like, really, people? It's just so tragic to see all of these things. Some of them are not preventable, but a lot are. And people wasting countless hours or years of their lives on just the stupidest subjects, when they really need to get their head out of their ass, get in the game, and start preparing for decline.
Yeah, you need to be preparing now and building your resilience now, because the next catastrophe, it's just around the corner. These are happening at ever increasing frequencies. So it's just around the corner. You need to be ready for that. Stop worrying about these things that are happening in the popular culture right now, because these are just symptoms of the greater problem.
Absolutely. And the greater problem is never going to get addressed. As we're talking about Tennessee, they're never actually going to address the real crises occurring there, which is the lack of education, basically the stupefaction of the Tennessee population. And then we've got the children that are not being taken care of. But it's not just them either. It's also adults as well. They're not getting the proper nutrition that they need. I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of people not being able to pay their bills. None of those issues are going to be addressed. No one's going to actually start building a resilience, and it's going to get a lot worse. We're going to see a lot more witches burnt at the stake, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just to try to distance yourself from the mob, because these people are mob, hive mind like. They're not normal human beings. They're just mush, zombified, really, that just go around and do whatever it is that they're told to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not going to get any better as we continue down this collapse road. So what I would say for people, pay attention to the things that are happening in your direct sphere. If you can't control it, you need to not worry about it.
Drop it. Yep.
You need to drop it. That's the only way to mentally get through a lot of the things that are happening right now. Because guess what? I have no control over laws in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I have no intentions of going to Tennessee anytime soon. It really has nothing to do with me at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that it can also help you emotionally to deal with things by just saying, you know what, I have no control over Russia, Ukraine, Europe, poverty in the United States. I can't control any of that, but I can do good things for my sphere and try to help my community near me.
Absolutely. And I think like one of the greatest things that people can do is just build their own personal resilience, because when you're doing that, you actually are giving back to your community. It may not seem like it directly, but you're no longer a threat to the stability of the community because you're now taking care of yourself. And you need to be protecting your mind, because there's a hell of a war raging of the mind right now. You know, the government and nefarious actors are very much interested in psyoping you and keeping you angry, depressed, isolated, and feeling helpless. But that's not true, because we're actually can build empowerment within ourselves by separating from this really toxic society and building our own resilience that we're hopefully encouraging you to do.
Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. Hopefully you have a better understanding of the situation than before you listen to the podcast. And just know to go into situations with an open mind and look at the facts objectively. Make your own decisions. Don't let the crowds make the decisions for you. We tell you, build resilience. We'd love if you went to our website, www.newrevenantsociety.com. You can check out, we have a great page of resources of other websites, books, videos, places that you can buy really great seeds and plants that we personally use. We don't have affiliation with any of the links. We've created this list to help other people for free. There's no reason to be charging money for anything like that. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.